Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the long enchanted tale gentle, extended storytelling version for kids in an ancient kingdom surrounded by sapphire mountains and deep emerald forests. There lived a young girl whose heart was purer than the first snow of winter. Her name was Snow White, and her kindness carried a quiet magic that warmed the hearts of everyone who crossed her path. The castle where she lived shimmered with golden light, yet Snow White's days were filled more with simple joys than royal luxury. She loved feeding the birds at dawn, collecting wild flowers for the kitchen maids, and sweeping the courtyard just to hear the soft sound of the broom on the stone floor. But deep within the castle walls, envy grew like a shadow. The queen, Snow White's stepmother, admired her own beauty more than anything else in the world. Every day she stood before her enchanted mirror, asking it questions carried by magic. And although Snow White spent her days gently, quietly, unaware of any jealousy around her, the queen's heart hardened with each passing year. For the mirror, bound by truth, whispered that the young princess's beauty shone brighter than her own. One crisp morning, when the sun had barely touched the tops of the trees, Snow White wandered into the great forest that bordered the kingdom. She carried a small basket with warm bread, planning to gather herbs for the castle cook. The air smelled of pine and earth, and the forest floor glowed with patches of morning light. She walked deeper than she ever had before, comforted by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant songs of birds. Yet, as she walked, she felt the woods shift like a gentle warning carried by the wind. Hours passed, and Snow White realized she no longer recognized the paths around her. The trees grew thicker, their branches knitting together like the arms of giant guardians. Still, she did not panic. Her heart, trained by kindness, trusted the forest's quiet wisdom. She followed a trail of mossy stones until, far ahead, she saw a soft golden glow. As she approached, she found a tiny cottage nestled between two towering oaks. Its windows were small and round, its roof made of wooden shingles, and its chimney puffed out a steady curl of white smoke. Inside, the cottage was warm and filled with comforting clutter. Tiny boots lined the walls, little chairs bordered the table, and pickaxes rested by the door as if waiting for their owners to return from a long day beneath the mountains. Snow White, exhausted from wandering, gently tidied the room. She swept the floors, dusted the shelves, and set the table as neatly as she could. When everything looked bright and welcoming, she finally curled up in a small bed, falling asleep with the softness of the forest still resting in her thoughts. Far beneath the mountains, seven dwarfs swung their tools in rhythmic harmony. They mined precious gems rubies that glowed like embers, emeralds brighter than spring grass, and diamonds that caught even the faintest beams of light. They worked with cheerful discipline, and when the sun dipped behind the ridges, they followed their familiar trail home. As they reached their cottage, they noticed something unusual. A warm glow poured from the windows, and the door was slightly ajar. Their tiny hearts beat with both curiosity and caution as they stepped inside. To their amazement, the home was spotless, and a soft presence lingered in the air, gentle, comforting, unfamiliar. They soon discovered Snow White sleeping peacefully in one of their beds, her dark hair like ink against the pale pillow. Rather than fear, the dwarfs felt a wave of protectiveness. There was something kind about her, something that made the cottage feel warmer than it ever had before. When Snow White woke, the first thing she felt was safety, like the forest had guided her to the right place. Days turned into weeks. Snow White learned to care for the cottage, waking early to prepare warm meals and humming gentle melodies that drifted through the trees. The dwarfs shared stories of their mining adventures and taught her the secret paths through the forest. In return, Snow White filled their home with softness, fresh flowers on the table, clean linens, small touches of love that turned the cottage into something magical. But far away, the queen still searched for answers. Her enchanted mirror told her Snow White lived, hidden safely in the mountains. Rage clouded the queen's heart, and she began crafting dark magic to reach the girl she envied. Disguised by spales, she traveled to the forest, carrying a crimson apple that glowed with unnatural sweetness. One quiet afternoon, Snow White stepped outside to gather water from a nearby stream. There, she met a strange figure carrying a basket. The woman's voice was gentle, her eyes soft, or so the spell made them seem. She offered Snow White the flawless apple, insisting it was a gift. Snow White, guided by trust and unaware of the danger, accepted it with gratitude. The moment she took a bite, the world softened. Her vision blurred, the trees stretched and wavered, and a deep, enchanted sleep wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. She sank to the forest floor, the apple rolling from her hand. When the dwarfs returned that evening, they found her lying still, her breath delicate and faint. Their hearts cracked with sorrow, yet they could not bear to part with her. They built a crystal coffin, placing her gently inside so her beauty, kindness, and quiet bravery would remain untouched. Seasons changed winter's frost, spring's blossoms, summer's warmth, autumn's golden leaves. Snow White rested in peaceful stillness beneath the open sky. And then, one day, a prince traveling through the forest found her. He felt something shift inside him, a recognition deeper than memory, a warmth stronger than words. As he knelt beside her, a tear slipped down his cheek, falling onto her hand. The spell broke with the gentleness of sunrise. Snow White's eyes fluttered open, the world brightening around her. Life returned in a soft, glowing wave. The dwarfs wept with joy, and even the forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Snow White returned to the kingdom, bringing the dwarfs with her whenever she could. The queen's dark magic faded into forgotten stories, and the castle blossomed with warmth it had never known before. Snow White ruled with kindness, quiet, powerful, and true. And in every corner of the land, from the highest mountain to the quietest meadow, people believed it was her gentle heart that kept the kingdom forever safe.